One of the most fascinating segments to consider about our visitors is simply where they're from when they visit your site. I've navigated to our location report by selecting from the geographical dropdown here under the audience category, the location option. Here, you'll see a geographical representation of the world with some colors applied. Light blue, light gray, dark blue, and so on. You'll see a scale here at the bottom of the screen, which shows that 1 is going to be white, all the way to dark blue, indicating the highest percentage or the highest quantity of sessions, because that's what's selected here in the upper left. This would change again if you selected something different. And that's going to apply this to the map. So this gives you some hotspots as to where all of your traffic is coming from. You can then select into a particular view. I clicked into the United States, and now I can see a map of the United States with the breakdown. We can see that Texas is really hot, and as I hover over it, I can see that this is where most of my sessions are coming from. If I hover over California, I can see the little black arrow there on the scale at the bottom of the screen indicates this is somewhere more towards the middle. I could go up and hover over, say, New York, and see the arrow moves further to the left. You can continue drilling in this case, I could select Texas, and now I'm going to get a map of Texas with hotspots. The large blue is going to indicate a very hot spot, and the small blue is going to indicate sessions by city. And as I hover over them, you can see the data appear there on the screen. When I hover over this highly dense area, you'll notice that Google gives me a little zoom in view, and then I can move the mouse within there to understand what's going on. In this case, Dallas is that large session. And if I hover over here, I can do the same, and we'll see that that is San Antonio. The interactivity of this report is what makes it really popular. As an analyst, you're looking for actionable metrics. So you need to start thinking, what is the map really telling you? And how can we get into the really interesting stuff? Well, if I zoom out by going up to the top and selecting back to the United States, you might notice something about this map. In fact, your site might look a little bit like this as well. Our visitor map often looks like a census map of population density. And this makes sense because where there are more people living, there are more people interacting with the internet. So it's no surprise that our darkest states are California, New York, Texas, Florida, and so on. And if you think about it, you might be asking yourself, well, then there's not a lot of actionable data here if my map looks just like your map. So unless you have a very niche audience tied to a very specific geographic category, your map is probably going to look a lot like my map. But we can get some actual analytics out of this report by taking an advantage of an additional feature. And that's the ability to populate this map with metrics other than visits or sessions. For example, let's say we're interested in engagement. So I can go here and select from the sessions dropdown, and I'm going to choose session duration. I'll start typing, and here I can see average session duration, and I'll select that. Okay, so now the map looks a little bit different. It's an entirely different map, which is giving me an idea of my ability to retain and engage users who come from particular areas. Here, I can see that Texas is no longer all that different from California. In fact, they're fairly similar in the amount of time a user is spending. But interestingly enough, people in New Hampshire are spending a very significant amount of time on the site. Now, that might be because there's less population and therefore they're skewing the data. So you might want to use the table view to really understand if there's some statistical significance to the amount of people. So here in New Hampshire, if I were to select into New Hampshire and scroll down, I can see the total sessions are only about 1,000, which indicates to me that, well, if my other sessions are somewhere in the 200,000, I could see how this particular region could be pushing that average session duration up, whereas Texas, and again, I'll go back by selecting the United States, and we'll drill into Texas here. Texas has over 135,000 sessions, so it's going to have a much more balanced session duration. You might use this to understand the type of content you're publishing, or if you have some specific regionality to how, say, people are buying. It may be a case of people's cultural differences even within the United States that differentiate whether they're interacting with your content how you'd like them to. Explore modifying your metrics to bring in different data points to help the map view in your geographic data make a little bit more sense for you.